You may have heard something telling you as such. And then with that, we'll get started. My name's Amy Birch. I'm a traffic engineer, transportation planner, and consultant that works for NDOT on behalf of NDOT to help facilitate the traffic calming program. So we're here to talk about Westchester Drive. As we go along, if you want to ask questions, you can unmute and ask those. We'll also be monitoring the chat box. And also on the call with me, I have another consultant that'll help me monitor the chat box and in case I miss any questions that come in. And we will post this meeting, the recording of the meeting afterwards, and it'll be posted on NDOT's website. I have a link to that at the end of the presentation as well. So with that, let's get started and talk about Westchester Drive. We're going to start with some background information about what traffic calming is. This neighborhood street traffic calming program focuses on residential streets only. And what we do is apply physical solutions that encourage slower speeds over the length of the street. And we are targeting speed reduction through the tools that we have in our toolbox to use in the program. We often talk about the 3 E's of traffic calming: education, enforcement, and engineering. Education being some of the methods that we use to communicate with the public, either externally about the need to drive slower on not only residential streets, but all streets really, through these meetings as well as part of our education component. Enforcement, that's the job that the police department does. And they obviously, that department has a lot of things to do. And so 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, enforcement on all the residential streets in Davidson County is just not possible. But they are partners. The police department is partners in this program and does do enforcement. But what NDOT and this program focuses on is the engineering of the street. How can we modify the street design through the tools that we have in our toolbox to encourage those slower speeds that we're targeting? Safety and Vision Zero is kind of our why on why this program exists and what we're trying to do. And this is just an infographic showing some national data about the correlation between vehicular speed and a pedestrian's chance of survival if struck by a vehicle going these speeds. So at 25 miles per hour, a pedestrian has an 89% chance of survival. And then that chance of survival goes down significantly as the speed rises. So at 45 miles per hour, the chance of survival is only 35%. So there's an obvious correlation between survivability and severity of crashes with speed. So higher speed ends up being higher severity of crashes. So that's why we want to get vehicular speeds lower. And also at lower speeds, a driver has a greater chance of avoiding the collision altogether because your reaction time is longer. You have a longer time to see an object or a person or other car in the roadway, slow down and stop and avoid the collision altogether. The cone of vision as you're driving is wider at slower speeds and more narrow at faster speeds. So you don't see the periphery as much when you're driving faster. So we really are trying to lower speeds closer to the posted speed limit on almost all residential streets is 25 miles per hour. So that's what this program is targeting and trying to achieve. This is a very popular program. And as of last summer, we had over 500 neighborhood streets that had applied for NDOT's traffic calming program. And this map is showing just pink lines along the streets that had applied for traffic calming. So you can see kind of where that density is the kind of where the residential density is as well. Last summer, this program selected 85 neighborhood streets for the traffic calming program, and Westchester Drive was one of those streets. This was a larger selection than our typical selection because of some surplus budget that was identified by Metro Council and allocated to the traffic calming program. So we have a bigger grouping of streets that we were working with that selection than typical. It's an application-based program, so neighbors get together, fill out the application, and apply twice a year for traffic calming. So we have the most recent window of applications was in March, and then the next one will be in September. And
Can we ask you a quick?
Yes.
A quick question. So somebody filled out an application to put the calming here on our street?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Because I'm like, this is the first we've heard of it. And so I was just like, I was wondering if we would know who put that in. I know Westchester, now there's two different Westchesters, and it's broken up between the interstate runs right through it. And so we're on the side with like the Cornerstone Church. There's another side that's over, I guess, near Chadwell, near the school. So I wasn't sure when you're talking about Westchester, are you talking about that side as well, or just the side over here beside Cornerstone Church? Do you know? Or is it all of it?
Cornerstone Church, let me, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to our map, and you'll see that. I have just a couple more slides, and then we'll be right there.
Okay.
Outside of the program, we like to refer people to Hub Nashville for service requests and needs that you may have, like you see a sign that's been knocked down, or a request for a traffic signal, or street lights out. It's not just NDOT, it's all departments can be reached for service requests and needs, like a storm drain is clogged and needs to be cleaned out. So you can call 311 or go to hub.Nashville.gov or use the app that you can download onto your smartphone and fill out service request. So within traffic calming, so we had, I told you, 500 streets that had applied for traffic calming. So how do we select those streets that get selected? It's those that score the highest in our prioritization process, and it's data driven. We look at vehicular speeds, volume. We measure that on all the streets that have requested traffic calming. And so speed is worth 45% of the score, volume is worth 25% of the score. And then we also look at things like trip destinations, proximity to places like schools, libraries, parks, greenways, and that is worth 5% of the score. And then we look at whether or not there are any non-driver accommodations on the street. So if there's not a sidewalk, or there are bike lanes on the street, or bus routes on the street or nearby, which would we would expect pedestrians to be using the street and sharing that space with vehicles. Then we also, so that's worth 15% of the score. And then we also look at what we call the vulnerable user injury and fatalities. And so we look back at 10 years worth of data and whether or not there's been a pedestrian injury or fatality on the street. That's 10% of the score. So those 500 streets, we rank them, and the ones that scored at the highest are the ones that are selected, matched with, you know, the available budget in that round. So here is the section of Westchester Drive that we're talking about is Chadwell Drive to Head Drive. So is that the section you live on?
Yep, that's ours. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we're in the right place. We sent the cards to the right people. So I want to show you just some street data that we measured on your street. The 85th percentile speed we measured at 40 miles per hour, where the speed limit is 25 miles per hour now. The 85th percentile speed, I want to explain that. is the speed that 85% of the traffic is going that speed or below. But it also means that 15% of the traffic is going above 40 miles per hour on this section of Westchester Drive. The daily volume is pretty low. There's probably some cut through from Old Hickory Boulevard and using the other section, the street head to get to Westchester and then around. And then the width of Westchester is about 23 feet wide. There's not any markings on the roadway. There's no sidewalks. We consider this to be a local residential street. And as you know, there are certainly some rolling hills on this street.
Mhm.
So we collected the data in January of 2023 for Westchester Drive. So it's been in our program and had been requested for about 6 months or so, or 8 months before it was selected. So that's some history there. Then this is a zoom in map. And this is a snapshot that's taken from our NDOT's traffic calming, online traffic calming tracker map. And so I'm showing the legend here on the side to show you where some of these other streets are, where they are in the program and so forth. But Westchester is there highlighted in green and written in red on the between Chadwell and Head. And so some other streets that are that have recently received traffic calming, you're probably aware of, are on the other side of Graycroft, are Marthona, East and West Marthona, and then on the west side of 65 Port Drive, and then the other section of Westchester that connects between Port and Dickerson. So those have recently received some vertical measures. And I'll say that we're aware of some of the issues that you may be aware of that are coming out of the Port Drive installation, and NDOT is working to resolve that issue of the cushions being placed kind of far apart in the center, and drivers trying to like go in between them. So we're working to resolve that issue. Then Gibson over that connects between Old Hickory Boulevard and West Due West, going north-south, has had some type of vertical measures for many, many years. And I think the last time it was repaved, we put the cushions on that street. So that's another street. Right.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to talk about our toolkit, our toolbox. Some of these streets I mentioned have speed cushions installed on them. So you may be, because they're nearby, you may be familiar with what they are and how they look. But these are modular rubber devices that are formed in a way that have some gaps that are meant to reduce the impact to emergency vehicle response, because those larger emergency vehicles like fire trucks and ambulances have a slightly wider wheelbase than passenger cars and pickup trucks. And so they're able to more easily straddle these cushions, whereas passenger cars are intended to travel over them and be affected and slow down. At their height, they're 3 inches high, and so the width is 6 feet wide. And then we arrange them in various widths depending on the characteristics of the street. Typically, we use the 7-foot long ones, which are the shorter ones, and that's in the direction of travel. We'll use the 7-foot ones in more urban areas, and then use the longer 10.5 and 14-foot ones in more suburban and rural areas of the county. As you can see in the picture on the left, the speed cushions, we pair them with signage, warning signage that has an advisory speed of 20 miles per hour. And then looking at all these pictures, you can see that we can arrange them in different configurations based on the width of the street, the characteristics of the street, like whether there are bike lanes or not, or center line markings or edge line markings, so forth. And then they have some markings on the cushions themselves that is reflective at night. Make sure that drivers can see those. So that picture on the bottom left of the screen is showing a profile view. So you can kind of see that's a 10.5-foot long cushion. And you can just see how it's arranged in the pavement and how high it is off the pavement. When we install these, we do have some limitations on where we can put them, like we can't put them on steep grade and we cannot put them in sharp curves. So we have to avoid those things. We also don't install them in the middle of intersections. We have to be, a distance away from intersections as well as driveways. So that comes into play as we lay out a design for a street, that we're avoiding driveways. We're not putting them at right at someone's driveway, so that you're, turning across them if you're having to turn in and out of your driveway. We're cognizant of that as we do that layout. Speed tables are similar to the cushions. They're made of the same material, but the differentiation is that they stretch the whole width of the street, and they don't have the gaps between that better accommodate the emergency vehicles. They also have the same markings. We still use signage with them. They have similar effects of achieving slower speeds. And vertical measures and our local impact. I'm showing some a summary of a comparison study that NDOT has done where we have installed speed cushions on streets, just doing a comparison of the average speed before and after, and that's on the left. So the average speed of these streets where we measured the before speed was 31 miles per hour, and then the after speed was average speed was 22 miles per hour, and then the 85th percentile comparison, the average was 37 miles per hour, and then it came down to 25 miles per hour after the speed cushions were installed. And I didn't mention this before, but when we install speed cushions and speed tables, we try to put them in a series and space them out so that we get more of a consistent speed. It's not always possible given some of the characteristics of the roadway, but the goal is to not have just one cushion on a long street, because we would expect drivers to behave similar to as they do now, and maybe only slow down for right at that device and then carry on. So we do try to put them in a series as we do that. Then we also use radar feedback signs. These are often used in places where cushions are either not possible to be used, or on a street that has maybe higher volumes or higher speed limits sometimes. So you may have seen these. I think on West Due West, we've installed some radar feedback signs you may have encountered. They can also be effective. The before and after data has shown 6 mile per hour reduction in average speeds at the devices, and a 7 mile per hour reduction in the 85th percentile speed. These are, installed all the time, and so they're also collecting data so we can quickly analyze and see how effective they are. Also in this program, we have used edge line markings, those white lines, to narrow the width of pavement. Sometimes we have a really wide street, doesn't have any markings on it, feels very fast because there's no constraint to the road if it's really wide. So that can have some effect in slowing drivers. Bulb outs and chicanes are tools more often used in more urban environments like you see in these two pictures, but we do this using paint and flexible delineator posts, those white posts you see around, often used with bike lanes. But the purpose and use of these types of installations is, particularly the bulb outs, the picture on the left, is to narrow the crossing distance for pedestrians. It also pulls back the on-street parking and defines where that can be, so it can improve visibility at the intersection. Also slows turning movements at an intersection when the radius is tighter and the intersection is smaller. So we do that just with paint and those flex posts. Then the pictures on the right are of chicanes. And this is typically installed on wider streets where we might have on-street parking, and we shift the lanes back and forth and add some horizontal deflection, so the street is otherwise wide and straight, but adding this these lane shifts through the pavement markings, we get a slightly slower speeds as drivers have to slow down to stay in their lane as they negotiate these sort of switchbacks. I think these are pictures are Fairfax Avenue in the Hillsborough Village area. And then traffic circles are intersection treatments where a circular island is installed in the middle of an intersection and creates horizontal deflection as you drive through the intersection. You have to drive, around the device instead of straight through the intersection. We really need wide intersections for these to be implemented, but and intersections itself, we don't have a lot of that on your street, but that's one of the tools in our toolbox. So now I'm going to move into our proposed concept plan for Westchester Drive. And the purpose of these meetings is to show you a draft plan, get some feedback, and then move forward through the rest of the process of the program. So we're here to tell you about the plan and then hear your feedback. So to orient you, north is to the right of your screen. So Chadwell is to the left where you see the stop sign. We're showing that Westchester Drive stops at Chadwell Drive. And then our symbology here is showing locations, concept locations of where speed cushions are proposed, as well as radar feedback signs. Like I mentioned, and you're very well aware, there are hills, there's rolling hills on Westchester Drive, so we have to be strategic in where we could put speed cushions because of our limitations. We can't put them on steep grade. And so that's why you see just two sets of cushions at the north end of the street. And then we've placed the radar feedback signs in the downhill directions, going away from Holiday Hills Court. And so that's the pictures there showing what those would look like. The speed cushions would be a set of two. We would, make those gaps such that drivers can't drive between the cushions, but they would drive over the cushions directly. So I think I'll pause there and see if there's any questions or discussion about what's proposed here.
Well, the issue that I've seen is the speed cushions were put near my parents, and you can't drive through the side, but they can drive through the yard, which is what they're doing, right on the right side and left side of those. And, so now it's just divoting the yard. And I mean, ours has deep ditches. And so the cushion thing that I worry, well, first of all, I don't want cushions, but the thing I worry about is somebody doing that and then they're falling into ditches, because I know exactly where those are. And there's some pretty deep ditches there.
Mhm,
So,
mhm. Yeah. Well, hopefully people wouldn't drive into the ditch instead of going over the cushion, but we do see some bad behavior. I'll certainly uh, agree with that. One thing that we do with these cushions, or try to when we can, is place the warning sign right next to it. It's not shown in this picture, but I had some other ones that showed that, so that there's that fixed post there to keep drivers from wanting to drive into the into the onto the shoulder, into the grass in people's yards. We had our team had some talks today about that exact scenario of when we have streets that don't have curb or gutter or sidewalk or anything, how do we try to mitigate that bad driver behavior? So
May I ask
Mhm,
a
mhm.
question? Like,
Sure.
I mean, was it this is Andrea, was it one person? Was it a group of people
that asked for this.
that asked for this? Because, I mean, like I said, we've lived here 19 years. We're out on the street and in the yard all the time.
Yeah.
Like, we're walking 3-4 times a week with our dogs. There's lots of other people walking. I was kind of, well, I was completely surprised, honestly, because of it doesn't seem necessary.
Well, not only that, but the few people that speed up and down this are motorcycles, which this does nothing for. Yeah, we have neighbors that have motorcycles and they'll just speed up the road and they're just going to go in between them. So it's not going to stop them at all. And so all it's doing is inconveniencing to me the people that actually live here, and they're just, I mean, they live here, but they're, down on another street that connects here, head. But I'm like, they'll just whiz up this one, they'll just go in between them and it won't affect them at all.
And that's like
Let
twice
me
a week.
address.
And that's not even that much for them even. I'm like, if it was really annoying, I use the hub all the time, so I would have said something, but.
Good. So let me address that. The application requires 4 neighbors to fill it out and apply. But we did have trouble getting some response when we tried to schedule this meeting, so I'm not sure if maybe they moved or what the scenario was. But the application does ask for multiple people to sign on and request it. So,
And you said that it was done in 2023?
correct. So it means that they would have applied in at the end of 2022, probably.
And so I just putting this out there that maybe it was a preemptive thing because there was a new subdivision that went in on Chadwell.
Which you can see down here.
A lot of concern about what that was going to look like. And we were told it was going to be like 50 or 60 or 70 housing units. And it's, it's about
8 right there.
8 to 12, I think they have now. So
they're not coming through Westchester. See, they're going down Chadwell, so they're not even coming through ours. And we've had, I can name like 4 people, or 4 neighbors that have completely sold and changed out. So see, I'm like, we don't know who it is, because if it's coming from where you're talking about head down to the other side, I mean, I'm looking at, 4 or 5 of those have all changed ownership. And so, yeah, I'm just on this street where you're talking about it. And so,
and that's our feedback at this point,
Yeah, no, that's good feedback. I don't know if Councilwoman.
I don't care about the radar signs. I think those are good. I've seen those, especially when you're coming off Ellington and things like that. The speed cushions are the things I don't want. And so we just wanted to find out. Neither one of us want them. And so we're like, well, first of all, I'm glad to see they're not in front of my house, but that doesn't still help, in that regard. I'm just like, oh.
Well, go ahead, Councilwoman.
Well, I was just going to say this feedback is very helpful because this is totally neighborhood driven. And so if the neighbors don't want this, we don't have to proceed forward with it. And it sounds like, from the difficulty or challenges getting the person who applied for the application or applied for the traffic calming study hasn't been responsive. And now we're hearing from neighbors who don't feel like this is the right approach, or maybe you feel like the radar signs may be good, but not the speed cushions. I mean, this is, you would, and I know Amy hadn't gotten to that point yet about the process moving forward, but you do have to have at least 66% of the people who respond to the survey that's going to go out for this, or that maybe we don't need to go out. I don't know how we'll move forward, but
Yeah.
at least 66% of the neighbors who respond would have to be in favor in order for the design to be approved. So, so it sounds like this might not be something that the neighbors are interested in.
That's what I'm hearing. You know, I know that we really only have one or two representatives on the call, but maybe that's because there's not, an interest in it at all. So I think that's exactly why we do these meetings, to get some feedback from people. And so if we don't think that it's necessary, I mean, the speeds were measured pretty high on your street. I'll say that.
That was that was my next question, because apparently in order for your street to be selected, there was some speeding or something going on the street that NDOT felt that your street, because NDOT gets hundreds, at least 300 applications per cycle. And normally only 25 streets are selected. Of course, in this last round, we were able to select more, or they were able to select more streets because we were able to add more funding to the program. But there are many other streets that are interested and maybe have more of a need. And if that's the case, then we can move on.
That's true.
I will say we've lived here a very long time, and I literally just a few days ago, I didn't even know there was a 25-mile-an-hour speed sign. It was covered under tree branches, and I think it's maybe on Head or right at the intersection of Head and Westchester.
There is one down here, right here with the radar one.
Not to say there aren't any, but they're not very noticeable if they're.
And that's what I was about to say, like, to her point is, if we had something like the radar things, that doesn't bother me. I think that's actually good, because it makes people think, oh, hey, oh, this is what you're going at, because you don't even realize most of the time. I think those would be good and so forth, but I'm just not as interested in the cushion thing.
Okay.
So there we have.
Yeah. Well, I think we can modify the plan to accommodate that. I don't think we're, we tend to think of this as a quality of life sort of program where we do look at data and so forth, but residents apply for it and ask for this type of treatment. And if that's not necessarily the case any longer, I think NDOT would still probably want to do some radar feedback signs, because we've measured the speed to be pretty high for residential street. We could incorporate that and leave it at that and remove the cushions from the plan. Does that sound good, Councilwoman?
Oh, definitely. Does that sound good, neighbors?
Yeah, exactly.
Would you like NDOT to move forward with revising the plan for just the radar signs?
That would be our preference, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me tell you just a little bit about the program and where we are. This is our neighborhood meeting to get this feedback. Then we do our more detailed design plan. And if the plan includes vertical measures like the speed cushions or tables, then NDOT requires a vote. And that's what we call the ballot process. And it's hosted online. We send postcards out to residents property owners that are along the street. And if 66% of the votes received are favorable, then the project would move forward as designed with the speed cushions. But if we don't receive that favorable vote, it would be a failed ballot. And then in that case, NDOT would have a plan B that would have less intrusive measures. And typically that is the radar feedback signs. We don't require ballot votes for those. And so that would be where we went. If we kept the cushions in the plan and it failed, it would still get some radar feedback signs, most likely. So what I'm hearing is we should just modify the design to just include radar feedback signs and not any cushions. And then we wouldn't have to do the online ballot. We would just get that worked into the construction queue, get the materials ordered and installed when they come in. So I just wanted to give you more update on that. Our balloting process, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it, but like I said, it's postcards. It's not really, it doesn't sound applicable here, but this is how NDOT, because NDOT wants to make sure that there's support for this project prior to spending that money, that funding on projects. So this is another checkpoint after the meeting to ensure that people are aware of the project and have the opportunity to vote on it. This
Can I
would,
ask you one question, Amy?
yes.
If you revised it so that it was the radar things, would they go in the exact same places that you were talking about for the cushions and so forth too, or what about the place?
Those are good places.
I mean, those are good places, but I'm just asking, is that where you would place those radar things there where those two Cs are as well?
I would look and see if we could we have some things. We also have to look at it and mention this with radar feedback sign. They are solar, and so we want to make sure they have enough sun coverage to stay powered and work and be operational. So we would look at that, and yeah. So I think we would probably, because of the rolling hills and the high speed, we would probably put another one in each direction. On the street, somewhere around the locations of the where the C's, where the cushion symbols are. Yes.
Okay. Okay, I was just asking. Thanks.
And yeah, and when we put those type of signs, we try to put them along property lines also, so they're not like right in someone's front yard. Yeah, so we will dig more deeper into where that they would need to go.
So Amy, would you all, would there need to be another meeting after you make revisions to the plan?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Not unless that's requested by you, council member, or our residents, community. No, I don't think we need another meeting.
Okay.
And that's the ballot zone. Here's my contact information and NDOT's information. And then I mentioned earlier about we post these meetings. We record the meetings and post them on NDOT's website, and that is TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. And this QR code will also take you there. That is where NDOT houses a whole lot of information about this program, our information about our toolkit. The plans are posted on the website. So, you know, in a month or so, we'll post the plans, but they won't be voted on there. But we'll probably still put the plans on there, so you could go and check that. But the purpose is we put the plans on the website, so when people get their ballot card and want to vote, they can see the plan that they're voting on before voting. So that's why we post them there primarily. And then the results of our ballot votes are all posted on the website as well. So great information about the program. Our online tracker map tool is there too. So with that, I think this was good feedback. Thank you for participating and telling us your thoughts on the program or on the concept for your street. And I think we will revise the plan to just include the radar feedback signs.
And will there be something that we find out, I mean, I'm assuming we'll find out somehow about that, or do we just keep an eye on this traffic calming website to see what happens?
So I think what I'm saying is we will move it, we'll put together the design so that the contractor knows where to put the signs, and we'll post that to the website in
Okay.
a month or so. And we wouldn't really have to have another meeting unless you're requesting another meeting to discuss it. We typically wouldn't meet to talk about radar feedback signs if that's all the plan is.
No, if it's changing to radar, we don't need another meeting. We'll just keep an eye out and see, where y'all decide to place them. That's all.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just you can check back on that website there in about a month, and we should have them posted. And then
Okay,
it's
perfect.
several months. NDOT doesn't keep all of these types of materials on hand because we don't know how many or what type we need. So they'll order the materials and install them after they come in. So it's still going to be a few months before they get installed. Typically, our construction time period is 8 to 10 months after the ballot closes. Conservatively, I'll say that it's probably 8 to 10 months from now to get those installed. The radar feedback signs, I'm not exactly sure if that's a quicker turnaround than the cushions or not.
I was gonna say they normally install, we have speed radar signs on Belshire Drive, and they have been somewhat effective in slowing down traffic, but an NDOT normally installs the signs saying that the speed cushions are ahead before they actually, not speed cushions. That's right, we're doing radars. Never mind, I'm thinking speed cushions. They don't put up signs for the radars. They just put the radars up. Never mind.
And they'll be put with this posted speed limit too.
Oh, posted speed limit, okay.
One question I do have, Amy, is I know on Head Drive, it says speed cushions warning on Head Drive, and there's no speed cushions there. So maybe that's what Jennifer's talking about, that they put those there, but they haven't put the cushions there. Do you know if are there cushions going on Head Drive?
No, there are not.
Surprise.
That's interesting. There are quite a few. I think there are cushions coming on Chadwell. There are some other traffic calming projects in that area. I'm not sure about Head Drive.
So Head Drive was part of the Kemper Heights plan, and that went with Port Drive and the other part of Westchester. But when Head went to ballot, because each street is separate, it's not like a whole plan. Like if a plan had multiple streets in it, each street is balloted separately, and the Head Drive did not pass the ballot. It didn't have enough votes. So I'm going to look into that about those signs, because they shouldn't be there if the cushions aren't there. It might have just been a mix-up.
Just giving you a heads up. I was just like, and that was before I think the storm or whatever was supposed to be this winter and stuff. And because my mom was driving down and she's like, oh, I guess there's cushions coming here. And I'm like, what? So yeah, just giving you a heads up. There's signs, but no cushions, which is fine. But I just wanted to let you know.
Maybe their signs are doing the job. Okay.
Well, maybe.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. If you have any other questions, you can, contact me or NDOT, and or if any of your neighbors have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And this meeting recording will be posted in a few days.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you both very much.
Yes.
Have a good evening.
You too. Bye.
Bye.